Haaland is the most expensive FPL player ever, so trying to build a Haaland team can be quite tricky. So I'm going to show you exactly how you can do it and even fit in the likes of Salah, Palmer, Trent and others if you want them too. And this first team is how to build a Haaland and Salah draft and has got both of them in there because to be fair, if you want a Salah and Haaland draft then you probably want Salah and Haaland. But what I want you to do is instead of focusing on the actual players in this squad, I want you to more look at the price points instead and more look at the structure of the squad. So you could replace these 4.5 million defenders with any other 4.5 million defender. And you could replace Nkunku with any other 6.5 mil mid, João Pedro with any other 5.5 mil. You get the point. So if you do want to squeeze in a Haaland and Salah, you're going to struggle a lot to fit in another premium, so probably won't be able to get in the likes of Palmer, Son and Saka as well as Haaland and Salah. I mean, it is possible and you can do it like this, but as you can see, if you do that, you're going to have a pretty much bare bones defense and really relying on those budget boys. So it's probably not a great idea, especially long term. It could end up being unlucky. But you can still build a pretty balanced Salah and Haaland team and have one almost premium in an Isak, Watkins, Bruno or Odegaard and still have Man City and Arsenal defensive cover too, just like this. You could also have completely different defenders like this, but if you do really want a Salah and a Haaland draft, you're still going to have to rely on some of those cheap boysies around your squad. Now, if some of those gems end up scoring big boy points, then you have the potential to do better than anyone else, right? As if you have those budget boys scoring the points, and then you still have the big boys in Salah and Haaland, you've literally got everything. But the main issue with Salah and Haaland drafts is the flexibility and the potential for future moves. As if in this team, for example, a more expensive mid starts popping off, Palmer starts getting all of the penalties again, Trent looks back to his old self, there is absolutely no way to get them in unless you want to sell Salah and Haaland. And if you are likely to do that after just 1 or 2 weeks, then maybe consider not doing it right from the start, as you don't really want to be 2-3 weeks into the season and hating your team already. So instead, you may want to go for a team that looks something like this, where instead of a Salah, you have 2 premium mids instead. So right here we have Saka and Palmer, but they could also be Son or Foden. And with that, you can still make a pretty balanced squad and still get Arsenal and Man City defensive cover too. But again, you're still relying on some of those budget boysies to score good points, and if they don't, then they're just going to be stinking out the gaff. And what's the point of having all the premiums if the rest of your squad is pretty wibbly wobbly? You could of course swap one of those premium mids for someone like a Watkins, Bruno or Odegaard instead and have slightly more balance with that slight bit of money change. Or you may want to go extremely balanced with a squad like this and only have one premium mid in someone like Saka and also one more slightly more expensive striker in Isak. And that now gives you Trent, Vardiol, Porro and Raya in defense for literally covering all of the best teams, and you still have amazing options in your squad like Jota and Eze in midfield too. You could obviously swap someone like a Trent down to a Munoz and upgrade the likes of João Pedro to Solanke, but it is certainly still very possible to make a very good FPL team with Haaland in your team, even though he is the most expensive FPL player ever. So just because of that, it doesn't mean that you should definitely avoid him. Which is funny because that's literally what I was saying all preseason, but I've changed my mind, okay? But even with Haaland, you could still squeeze in players like a Salah, a Saka, a Trent and more. But obviously, the more you start to drop down these premiums and have less and less premiums in your squad, the more you can spread that money elsewhere and have a better and more balanced squad overall, which could potentially be a lot better with more potential routes to points. If you do load up on more premiums, then you're obviously relying on more budget players, and most budget players are budget players for a reason. You can't always rely on them, and it could end up being a big boy unlucky. But also, counterpoint, if you spread your money a bit too much, then it may be harder to get in the likes of Salah and Palmer if they start to pop off, and you don't want to see a player scoring a hat-trick every week and you literally have no way to get them in your team unless you wildcard. That could be even more unlucky. So there's plenty of different structures and different players to pick, and you could argue your case for any one of them right here. Personally, if I did have to choose a Haaland draft, I would probably pick this one right here, as I prefer the personnel in this squad, and I would just prefer a more balanced squad from game week 1, as you don't know what players are going to turn up just yet. However, in a more balanced squad, you could also end up using an early wildcard instead, as if you spread all the money, it's hard to get that money back out into just one player. But that's overall why the main reason I am actually slightly leaning towards a no Haaland team, as a few weeks down the line, we have all the bandwagons, we know all these best value picks here and there. And if you're stuck in a Haaland draft, then I feel like the structure, it just isn't quite as strong and flexible. Where if you don't have Haaland and your team's a little bit more flexible, then you can be a bit more reactive and proactive with those bandwagons and not be stuck in a structure that's making you completely scramble around for weeks and weeks. So let me know, which Haaland draft do you prefer, and are you still going to have Haaland in your team despite him being the most expensive player ever? That's going to be all. Thanks for watching, and also remember,
don't be a cheeky scrub. Subscribe to Nathan Bacon right now. Don't let your memes be dreams.